Hi. So for the past 3 years or so, I've been scanning all of my film on a flatbed scanner, specifically an Epson V600. And honestly, it's served me pretty well. For the purposes of just posting my photos to Instagram to share with my friends, it was good enough. But after doing some experimentation, I have decided to fully invest in a DSLR scanning setup. And ever since doing that, I've been kind of obsessed with comparing the results between the two scanning methods. So, if you're interested in seeing the quality difference between a scanning setup that's worth a couple $100 versus one that's worth a couple $1,000, this video is for you. For fun, I'm also going to compare the results with a $0 scanning setup where I just scan the photos with my phone. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, now that we've selected the negatives that we want to scan, let's start with the phone scanning method. Now, I called this one the $0 method because theoretically, you don't need to get any extra equipment to do it. All you need is a phone. Now, you can download apps for film scanning on your phone, but the way I'm going to scan the photos in this video is by scanning them all as negatives and then converting them in Negative Lab Pro. Now, if this is your first time scanning film, I wouldn't use Negative Lab Pro because it costs like $100, so you should only really get it if you're actually really into doing this. So for the phone scanning method, all you really need is a bright background to hold your negatives in front of, and then you just take a picture of the negatives. So I'm going to do that real quick. The next scanning method is flatbed scanning. I got this Epson V600 about 4 years ago for $300 on Amazon, but since then the price has risen to $400, probably because of idiots like me impulse buying them and increasing the demand. Regardless, this thing actually comes with a really convenient tray for scanning film negatives, so let's just pop in some film and get some scans. I think of all the methods in this video, this thing probably has the best ease of use. You just plug it into your computer, and if you're using Epson Scan or Silverfast, which is what I use, you can get your final images right after scanning the film. But for the sake of consistency, I'm going to scan this film as a positive and convert it manually later, the same way that I convert the phone and DSLR scans. Okay, on to the third method, which is DSLR scanning. Now, for this method, I actually use the camera that I've been filming this video with, so let me switch it out with something else real quick. There we go. That's better, I think. So as you can see, for my DSLR scanning setup, I have the Lumix S5 Mark II, as well as the Laowa 90mm 2x ultra macro lens. And yes, I still call it DSLR scanning, even though this is technically a mirrorless camera. It's just out of habit, don't think about it too much. For this scanning setup, I could use the scanning trays that came with the Epson V600 to hold the negatives, but I also happen to own a 3D printer. So what I've done is I have 3D printed a negative holder that I just downloaded online for free. This is called the Tone Carrier, and it is fantastic for holding your negatives really flat. And then this piece is also 3D printed. I modeled this specifically to fit on this lens hood, so that there wouldn't be any flaring from the light coming from the light table around the tone carrier and hitting the lens. The copy stand that the camera is mounted to is also built from scratch out of pieces that I modeled and 3D printed myself. With all the film scanned, I brought the photos into Lightroom and used the plugin Negative Lab Pro to convert the negatives into positives. It's worth mentioning that neither of these pieces of software are free. I'm only using Lightroom for this video out of convenience, and theoretically, you can use any imaging software you want to invert the scans by hand. A good free image editor that I used for a few years is GIMP, and you can in fact use it for converting negatives. If you're scanning with a phone, you could use an app to easily scan and convert all of your negatives. In Negative Lab Pro, I didn't touch any of the settings when converting the negatives. This is purely to see what the scanning software does to the colors and contrast depending on what scanning method is used. The only adjustments I made to the images after conversion was cropping to 2:3 and then adding a little sharpening. Okay, with all the photos processed, let's finally take a look at some comparisons. The Galaxy S8 scans are, as expected, very low res. It was also pretty difficult to scan them because I didn't have a way to make my more curly negatives flat, which resulted in some distortions and uneven focus in the final images. Using an actual smartphone scanning setup would probably fix this, but I don't have one. There's a lot of bloom happening around the highlights in these images, as well as color shifts and artifacts that are likely caused by the phone's image processing algorithms. However, a lot of these issues are made superficial when you scan black and white film, which looks surprisingly good with this method, especially this infrared shot of a tree. Don't get me wrong, it pales in comparison to the other methods we're about to discuss, but for Instagram posts, I'd say these scans are actually serviceable. The sharpness of the Epson V600 is obviously a lot better than the phone. There's way more resolution, the weird bloom from the phone scans is gone, the colors are more faithful, and there's better dynamic range. However, there are a number of pretty big problems that these scans have. Namely, there's this extremely annoying scanline artifact that my Epson V600 produces most of the time when I scan film with it. It's an issue caused by the calibration area on the scanning bed not being perfectly clean, but usually no matter how many times I blow or wipe away the dust, this stupid line persists. On top of that, my scanner apparently was just really dusty in general when I scanned these negatives. Wiping it with a microfiber cloth would have helped, but even then, there is somehow dust inside of the scanner that I can't clean. Besides the dust, there's also this huge out of focus hair inside of my scanner. I don't know how it got there, and I don't know how to get rid of it. These defects are all removable in Lightroom using the healing tool, but it's still a lot of extra work that I'd rather not do. In contrast, the DSLR scanning setup has way less dust in the raw scans. Not only that, but the resolution is genuinely excellent. In this photo of some houses, you can zoom in and see the siding really clearly on the S5II scan, whereas the V600 smudges a lot of that detail and the Galaxy S8 is barely worth talking about. I especially love the look of trees in the S5II scans. The resolution lets you see the subtle halation around the branches of silhouetted trees a lot more clearly than with the V600 or Galaxy S8 scans. In fact, the scans from the S5II are so good that it rivals a Nikon Super Cool scan. This is a photo that I had a friend of mine scan with his Nikon scanner, and although the resolution of the Nikon scan is slightly better, the detail in the grain is really close when compared to my DSLR scan. So yeah, in conclusion, DSLR scanning is the way of the future, flatbed scanning is decent for if you're just doing film photography for fun, and phone scanning is, in my opinion, almost pointless. That's about everything from me. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is a photo that I had a friend of mine scan with his Nikon scammer. Whoa, scammer.